LANFest's Infernal Land Mayhem event. I'm Nixie Pixel on Twitch and on YouTube. Up next is our Gaming for Good panel with some panelists that may surprise you. But first and foremost, I want to mention that this weekend we're supporting Engineers Without Borders. EWB is pursuing a vision of a world where every community has the capacity to sustainably meet their basic human needs. If you share in that mission, our goal is $4,000 for this event. Head over to donate.landfest.com. Now let's learn how we can change the world. So even though there are 2.2 billion of us gamers, gaming has been a tumultuous place of how it's viewed in society. Today, we're challenging the age-old stigma that games are for ambitionless couch and/or basement dwellers with three incredible panelists that aim to show that gaming is actually great for the world at large and holds huge promise for social impact. So if you guys don't know, I'm Nixie. I'm a tech educator and former host of Discovery Channel. I've been a part of Tech TV and G4 TV, and I turned YouTuber. In 2017, I created my own open source community, Geek Beacon, and that's a not-for-profit fellowship of geeks that shares my open source values and dedication to social good. And we have a total reach of 400,000 strong. We run events with a focus on mental health, crowdsourcing 3D printers for PPE during the COVID times, and we've partnered with Sony to help make accessible controllers more accessible for people. And we're teaming up with LANFest to assist the gaming community at large with panels such as this one. So I'm very happy to announce here that Geek Beacon is kicking off our first open culture celebration, and that's going to be celebrating open source, open technology, gaming, and that's happening in Q4 with a full speaker lineup. So you can go check that out at gbffest.org. The three amazing panelists are as follows. Hey, Jeremy. Jeremy De La Rosa is a 10-year veteran of Blizzard Entertainment with nearly 2 decades of experience in the technology sector. As a producer at Blizzard, he helped launch over 7 AAA titles, awesome, such as Overwatch, Hearthstone, Diablo, and my personal favorite, StarCraft. He's spent several years living abroad in France and led to digital marketing, international operations, and business development efforts. Jeremy helped launch multiple esports leagues, including the Overwatch League and Hearthstone Championship Tour, while also heading up Blizzard's collegiate esports program, TESPA. He's the founder and CEO of Leyline, a social impact organization, and Leyline is a not-for-profit, open source, and open knowledge project that is building an ecosystem of positive impact and using the power of gaming and NFTs. If you don't know what an NFT is, this is like your challenge. Non-fungible token, right?
That's right. I have to explain because it's very, very complex.
Yeah, and that will happen in a bit. So, hey, Anthony. Dr. Anthony Bean is a licensed clinical depth psychologist, video game researcher, CEO of Geek Therapeutics, and president at the Telos Project. It's a thriving nonprofit gaming central mental health clinic. Anthony specializes in the use of video game character identification as a therapeutic technique, and he's also authored multiple academic articles, book chapters, and the 2 books Working with Video Gamers in Games and Therapy, a clinician's guide, and the Psychology of Zelda, linking our world to the Legend of Zelda series. I like that, linking our world pun.
We like play on words.
Yeah, same. Okay, and last but not least, hi, Tom. Tom Butler holds a Master of Public Health degree and an MS in Marriage and Family Therapy. He's a founder of the Pro Battle League, an esports organization that's focused on developing 24 healthy gaming communities across North America. Tom is also helping to develop an esports management program through the Milgard Business School and sports enterprise program at WashU. Are you guys all gamers? I feel like that's kind of goes without saying, but it's entirely possible or not. Let's go with Anthony. What's your favorite game? Do you have any games?
Definitely have to be The Legend of Zelda on that one. That was the first book that we did, so definitely that one. Ocarina of Time for people who are going to ask that one.
Oh geez, I had a friend that used to play the ocarina, and I was super jealous. If you've never seen an ocarina, it's kind of like a really ornate recorder. Yeah, definitely.
One of my good friends can play it with his nose.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Fun fact. It's disgusting, but it's very entertaining.
I was going to say insert clip here, but possibly not.
I bet you I could find some if you need it.
Perfect. What about you, Tom?
That's a broad question. There's a lot of games for different moods I'm in, but I think
That's
for
true.
this discussion, like I'd have to go with Minecraft. We just have used Minecraft in a lot of ways, a lot of fun ways, creative ways, and building online social interaction with young people. So that's I'll give a shout out to Minecraft community.
Oh yeah, the Minecraft community. It's kind of one of those. I remember meeting the developers of Minecraft, and they were so timid and like at a game developer conference, and it was just like, what is your game? And they're like, Minecraft, and there were like 3 people, and now it's just, they sold to Microsoft, so it's like, it's incredible. What about you, Jeremy?
Same favorites, Warcraft 3. It's not just I worked at Blizzard, but it was before I worked there. The one, RTSs are fantastic. The game design and the balance between asymmetric races was incredible. The leveling up of heroes and the variety that came in there, the story is incredible. And even bigger was that it created a platform for people to create modded games, which gave birth to tower defenses, to Dota,
League of Legends.
Yeah, exactly. So it's certainly one of my favorites. Had a big influence in my life.
Yeah, I whenever somebody says like they played Frozen Throne, I'm just which was like a mod that kind of paved the way for League of Legends. I'm kind of like your OG, good for you. So yeah, if you don't mind me asking, Jeremy, since we're chatting with you, how did you find this career path in gaming? Since we all come from gaming backgrounds, like what steps led you to where you are today?
Yeah, I think gaming has always been a part of my life, even started from childhood, playing with like Coleco, Atari, Commodore 64, Amiga. And, I spent a lot of time as a bit of an introvert playing tons and tons of games. And it actually, taught me a lot of problem solving and a lot of thinking about algorithms and development. So I ended up going into technology, studying computer science in college, but then also realizing and shifting into more project management and product management because I felt those are my natural strengths versus coding. And I was working in tech in New York for a while, and I actually had a concern that going into video games was going to be a grind and I'd be working all the time because it has a pretty bad reputation for that. But there was in New York grinding and working overtime all the time with these tech companies, basically focusing on like ad tech. So I read a Gama Sutra article on what it was like working over at Blizzard and the culture. And I applied on a whim and got really lucky that they brought me over and flew me out and interviewed. So it was very much a dream job for me. And, I think being able to bring in that kind of experience being a gamer, being a customer really helps to plug into being a developer because you really understand your product and you're actually playing and understanding it and you essentially dog food it. So when something's not working well, you're the one that's got to fix it. So it was a pretty nice journey. I think like getting into STEM and tech was really the key because that's when you kind of realize that there's just so much potential in this industry.
What about you, Tom? We'll do some I have so many questions and I want to open it up to a discussion group after, but what about you, Tom? How did you find your career path and what steps led you to where you are today?
Well, I never imagined that I'd be where I am today. But I was a huge fan of video games and really, being old enough to see the evolution of video games and just the whole animation interactivity. It just really was something that connected with the way I think. But I read a book called Rise of the Creative Class by Richard Florida quite a while ago. And so I got really interested in how to develop, the collision between creativity and technology. And I'm in the Seattle area. And so that's, a big collision of creativity and technology in the gaming industry up here. Got looking at what would be a place that I might fit and just got really interested and sucked in by the competitive entertainment aspect of video games, and that's how we ended up launching an esports organization.
Mhm. Anthony?
So I've been a gamer since I was 3 years old. I still remember my first memory of an not N64, sorry, NES, and Adventure Island. If anyone's ever played that, that one is hard for a 3-year-old to do because I'm just smashing buttons trying to make sense of it. But I remember that and getting to like the fourth level, and then I don't think I've ever played that game since. But career path wise, it's kind of gone on from high school. I've always been a gamer, working with video games, dredging myself through anime and other stuff like that. But also going through college, research has always been focused on video gamers. What can we do to understand them better? Because I don't necessarily agree with that violence, aggression debate, where a lot of people try to push a lot of the narrative that video games are bad and cause violence and stuff like that, because it just my research is obviously super flawed. But we'll probably get into that a little bit. But it basically has come all the way to my doctorate program, where I've been working with kids as young as 4 years old, all the way up to actually 89, in lots of different things such as substance use abuse, working with kids on the autism spectrum, all the way to just teenagers in high school, of really focusing on what are the strengths that the video games can give them. Because as we all know, in order to program a game, you have to have rules and boundaries. And those rules and boundaries can be very, what we call, clinically extrapolated into real life world. And one, it's a wonderful rapport building, but two, it's also a really awesome way to get the clients to understand and utilize the stuff they learn in the games outside as well, when we can utilize it from a metaphorical standpoint as well.
So having gaming be just like the foundational building blocks of your experience in childhood, one of the things that I didn't know, I think 10 years ago, like we didn't have gaming degrees. Like that was another thing. I don't know how far back the rabbit hole goes and when you got certified or when you went to school, but I guess my discussion group question for you guys would be like entrepreneurship, right? How did you, it's risky to decide to go into games for reasons that you kind of mentioned also, Anthony, about, it can be divisive. Even though there's billions of us that game, there's still kind of stigma around that. So what made you kind of like take that risk? And, this is an open discussion. So if you guys want to like chime in, feel free. For me, just to kind of weigh in on my personal experience, I was in video game journalism. At first, it started off with just working at TV stations, talking about things that I didn't care at all about. And then I realized there was like that aha moment that I can do, like I can be in games, like, and that wasn't even a degree program that exists. And now I'm learning about cybersecurity, which is the degrees for that are also really minimal. So what made you guys take that risk of going into games? I know that Jeremy took quite a bit of a risk from one of the interviews after you left Blizzard. For instance, you said you basically like sold your house and like decided to be, start up the ley line, so.
Yeah, I think, I spent a long time at Blizzard, and I started to see how, deep in the guts of that system, how these large private corporations operate, international corporations, and all the shenanigans that can take place there. And the biggest thing that I saw was, the sheer amount of gamers you mentioned 2.2, some of the stats I saw are 2.7 billion gamers, and the growth rate is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And my question was, okay, how much of that energy and computing power and cognitive problem solving power is getting redirected to actually solve problems in the real world, both for people and planet? And the answer was barely even 1%. And that was deeply concerning to me because, we're spending more and more time gaming on average, and there are pretty straightforward ways for us to repurpose and integrate the outputs of this into benefits for society. So I tried for about 6 years to make progress there over at Blizzard, failing over and over again to get people to prioritize some of these like key features or initiatives. And typically there is this corporate social responsibility, but inherently what happens is that people don't prioritize these kind of projects because it's just not profitable to do good. So, I decided to leave because I wanted to have a bigger impact and I saw the opportunity. And in particular, the trends are just so crazy in the rapid growth of just even internet connection. And with younger generations, even in the US, it's approaching over 90% of teens and adolescents are now gamers. So what are we going to do? And so my hypothesis is let's leverage that. Let's leverage the momentum that's happening in blockchain and crypto. Let's mash them together and point all of that towards supercharging nonprofit social impact organizations and anybody that's trying to improve the state of the world. And the problem is our economy doesn't necessarily reward those behaviors. And to me, it's okay if we just change the flow of money to reward good things, that can empower everybody to participate, even these tiny steps. You multiply that by 2 billion, you can make a big difference. And at the same time, you make it easy and pay people to do that, you can start to actually have an impact on poverty too. So, our focus here is really about supercharging other organizations, including Anthony's. We've been talking about how can we support mental health efforts, and he's doing exactly the work that we really want to celebrate. And yeah, tie it into your digital identity. So I'll pause there. There's a lot to say.
Yeah, and just doing so by utilizing your computers. Like, another thing that I think about is how celebrating the laziness of people too. Like utilizing computers' latent resources has been, and this again ties into your project at Leyline, but has been done in like folding at home. If you guys are familiar with being able to, sequence the genome in a crowdsourced manner. Like that's super nerdy, but yeah. So if you guys feel free to like banter amongst yourselves if you want. I'm trying to take myself out of the equation a little bit more.
Well, I think that what Jeremy said there about making an impact, I think that's a key, and from an entrepreneurial perspective, you have to be you have to embrace the grind, and so we felt like we could make a difference. We felt like we could bring a unique perspective of competitive entertainment to the esports space, to the gaming space, and that has kept us going. And and the esports space is a tough space, and it's a lot of money comes in, but it's still not economically healthy. There's still a lot to do to make the esports space a solid space. So you have to believe in something. When things aren't working out, deals aren't working out the way you want them. You have to believe that you can have that impact, that you can make a difference.
Esports is something that I remember doing like the very first shoutcasting thing. I did it at PAX. It's a conference in Seattle. And I remember signing myself up for, helping with League of Legends. And all of a sudden I didn't realize, but they like took the entire hall. And that was when it hit me that it's like esports is huge. And, like Fortnite is also like it's just the aspect of esports and the competitive nature of it. I would like, how do you guys approach toxic gaming communities and the competitive nature of it as well? Like, that's an interesting dynamic.
And I think that's something that really interests the behavioral scientists in me, because it's the truth of the matter is you see so much good in stick and ball youth sports. You see so much good mentoring that goes on. And that's the kind of organization that we want to build, an organization that uses the interest in the competitive video game culture to create opportunities to teach good things. And so, and that toxicity is one of the things, and emotions run high. And Dr. Bean, knows, he's probably seen, the emotions running high when someone's getting beat rather than winning. And so it's how, and that creates a teachable moment. And so again, by focusing on creating healthy competitive entertainment or communities, then it really is about bringing in resources that can connect with younger gamers all the way up and develop them, so that they have a healthy perspective of the competitive arena.
And to kind of jump on that one a little bit, it when we think about like gaming, esports, and stuff like that, news places really in the media culture likes to really just hone in on like a couple things that they're like, oh my gosh, look, there was this huge big thing that happened. There is this kid who threw a controller. Look, at video gaming is bad. And you're like, hey man, that's not even like 1,000% of the entire population. Yeah, there's always going to be some people who do it, but you have football players who throw the football or take their helmet and chuck it until it smashes. I mean, there's lots of different types of competitive environments that are out there, and I think that what Tom said was correct. Like, we're going to see a lot of increase in some behavioral mechanisms when the competitive streak gets created and touched upon. And it's really focuses a little bit more on how do we create that as a teachable moment for the person to be, one, mindful of the situation that's in front of them, knowledge that this isn't always how it is. And maybe, when we work with pro gamers and esports gamers, they're going for 8 to 10 hours at a time. Like, you need breaks. Like, when we work with the esports people down here in Texas, we tell them the number one thing is you need to have them on a schedule where they have a break, because as soon as they get up to a certain point and they hit that losing streak, it becomes a downward spiral for anyone. But that's not just gaming, that's anyone that would be in a competitive environment.
It reminds me of Jeremy talking about avoiding possibly going for a CS degree because of the crunch, the issue with crunch, but
yeah, I think we've got a culture that celebrates overtime and lack of sleep, which is actually very destructive for all of our general health. And I think there is opportunity to start to reshape that culture through conversation, community, and shared values. But there's also this other element in technology side where you have the power of connected individuals, huge data sets. So what we found is there's these huge opportunities when it comes to behavioral economics, where you can just plug in these small little nudges that will help to give positive interactions between people. So I want to give an example of that with Overwatch at the end of a match, when you're basically saying, hey, this person played really well, let me give him a vote. That encouragement already starts to shape people's mindsets, where instead of finishing a match, you're like, this is a terrible, oh, I hate all my teammates. You're instead thinking about what are the good things they actually contributed to, which totally flips the kind of script that people create for themselves, and it changes their experience as well as those around them. So it creates this positive feedback loop. So there's all these little micro interactions you can create that start to at least bring some positivity into that. And particularly with competition. So for example, Overwatch League, we also put a lot of emphasis into coaches and therapists and trainers, that they would help oversee these individuals, find when they had burnout or if they had issues, keep on top of that, because it's really hard to maintain that yourself and to look after yourself when you're just so heavily competitive. So there's lots of opportunity to shape the culture here, and also bring in technology to drive behavior in the right way.
Reminds me of playing Fortnite and then having someone kick you from the party just accidentally, and then it says like, take this opportunity to reflect on your behavior. And yeah, preemptively.
And on a flip side, we would identify who the trolls were and who get constantly reported. So what would happen is you start to shift them over into their isolated communities, where you put all the trolls together instead of mixing them in with the positive population.
That's what's happening in the data backend. There's an algorithmic analysis on trolls. That's really interesting.
One of my friends who works for Riot Games, actually, she's used to be a licensed psychologist, and now she does the research, and she talks exactly about what Jeremy just said. was that they find the toxicity, they then start to try to engage that person. How can we change that? How can we do something different? If they don't, then they start to pair them in this specific algorithm to get them into, so if they're not going to enjoy the game, then hopefully they will quit it. But that I think League of Legends is notorious for the toxicity that is in that game, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon.
I want to give gaming in general, like the trajectory of games and technology, a pat on the back, because back in the day, you had, like, gamers had no say on the development of a game. Now we have, alpha releases where you're paying essentially full price for the game before it's released, which is interesting. And now they can tell, based on gamer feedback, exactly like how they felt about a game, their behavior in a game. That's just something that I never thought in a million years would be possible in games. I kind of want to change the subject just a teeny bit on why, and maybe this is a brief conversation because you guys are clearly gamers, but why did you choose games to be your platform for social good as opposed to other avenues? Like, assuming you are people of varied interests, like Tom, why did you choose gaming to be your platform?
Well, I think it comes down to where's the future. We end up talking about the gaming generation. And, if you're going to impact social change, I mean, I really love the fact that, you're dealing with 89-year-olds, and I think there's been some really interesting conversations we've had about competitive gaming with a nursing home chain. And that's a fun project. But but if you want to impact the future generation, then using gaming as a way to do that, to me, is really the only choice. And there's so much fun around it as well, and there's so much fun in the community as well. So there's a real positive dynamic to it, as well as be able to reach a lot of younger people.
I want to dig into this nursing home competitive gaming thing. So I want to add another question on top of why did you choose gaming, which is, can you think of one of your favorite stories that came out of your mission? So perhaps you would like to tell me more about this nursing home gaming thing.
Well,
and I'm going to call on you individually.
Yeah, I just, it was kind of at the start of COVID that we started having a conversation, and then it immediately got sidelined, especially here in Washington, with assisted living centers. But the concept is, and we'll get back to it, is that there is an aspect of occupational therapy and physical therapy that becomes fun if you can have a little bit of competition going along with it. And so we haven't really done much with it, but video games are being used a lot in assisted living centers to have a fun gaming dynamic with some of the therapy that's going on, and then just the socialization as well. And so having some socialization going on between different centers online, that's something to explore as well. So yeah, it's a fun project. I'm looking forward to having more discussion with it. As far as the kind of the most impactful story, I've had more than one person come up. We have been active in the Halo space. And so I've had more than one person say to me, this game saved my life. And when they're talking about that, they're not really, talking about the game. I mean, the game is engaging, but they're talking about the community. They're talking about having a focus, that gives them a focus on others in a gaming situation rather than kind of getting lost in themselves. And they're talking about sometimes having a social outlet that they're not finding in other areas of their life. So, again, to have gaming be so significant that people would say in an extremely heartfelt way, this game saved my life, there's something deeper there than just pixels on a screen.
I used to actually
1000%.
work in nursing homes too, before I started the nonprofit, the Telos Project. So I down here in Texas, we actually would bring in Mario Kart. That was the one, and that was, my gosh, that got tons of people out into the lunch area to be able to take turns, and we'd bring in 4 controllers, we'd switch it out, let them play, but to have the audience engage themselves and get out of the rooms, because one of the big things that, at least down here in Texas, that we've seen is once someone enters a nursing home, it's like they feel so secluded from life in a lot of different ways, and they will seclude themselves in their room to a point where it's unhealthy for mental health wise. And so for us to be able to get them out utilizing these different types of games, whether it's Mario Kart, Dungeons and Dragons, or a different type of a game in a tournament, was massively beneficial for these people. And I think that they even tried to continue on the program that I was helping to run in a couple of them after I left. But we saw a really good mental health increase for the geriatric population, for those that are in there. And we also saw them start to utilize it in the OT area too, which was a lot more fun. Although the games, I think, were, lack of a better word, would have been a lot more engaging on some levels, but they're not really designed sometimes to be that way.
Well, I'm just really looking forward to having a picture of a room of residents with gaming jerseys on. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. That would be amazing. I'm just thinking about, to share a little bit of my own situation, but my dad actually had a stroke, and that, I don't think having any gaming based therapy was available to him, because he would have, if he was like, hey, you can beat, in occupational therapy, if you just do your dang therapy, you can beat the Ethel at this, he would be like all on top of the competitive aspect of it. But Jeremy, I want to give you a chance to speak, because I know that your project is a little bit more nuanced. So I want to give you the opportunity to explain a little bit more about Leyline, and also if you have a good story that came out of your mission or service. I think that would be really cool. I don't want to forget that, because it's like you said, and NFTs are hard to wrap your head around too.
Yeah, absolutely. And to speak about like going into the space, what we observe is it's really about the trends. And Tom, I totally agree that this is the future. And gaming in particular just is so engaging that it activates all these different motivators in you, and it's learning, belonging, achievement, growth. And this is a platform to actually drive specific behavior. So what we are building is essentially this digital collectible game where you can essentially evolve your NFTs that represents the good that you've done in the world. So you essentially can donate blood to the Red Cross, or leave your computer on and donate your extra cycles to scientific research on cancer and climate change. You can exercise and ensure that you're taking care of your personal health. So there's all these categories of good that you can do. And so what we're doing is baking that into these NFTs, which are these immutable digital assets on the blockchain. Nobody can hack it, and you own it, which is the biggest difference in the entire tech world, where, for example, in World of Warcraft, you can grind for hundreds of hours, get your epic gear, and you can sell it on eBay, for example. But if Blizzard says, hey, you don't own this anymore, I'm going to ban your account, or we're going to shut down the servers, or we're going to nerf your item, you lose all that value. Whereas in the new world on blockchain, there's a new business model, essentially play to earn. So you participate, you play your games, and you start to own these assets, which you can sell, you can finance, you can split into different forms of assets. This entire new business space is an industry is being created as we speak. And then you could take those assets and transport them into other open worlds, other games on a blockchain. So if you've seen Ready Player One or read the book or Snow Crash, that metaverse is being built as we speak. So, our focus here is we want to create this marketplace where people are earning these collectibles, leveling them up, and unlocking new assets and art and video and audio, which are being donated to us from all these different creators. and you could sell them on a marketplace, and a portion of those proceeds goes back to the creator too. So we're creating this passive income to all these individuals, and these prizes in the prize pool, which are also donated by sponsors or part of our marketing budget, is going to go to people that are in need. So for example, if you do some good in your local community, you earn an NFT and you get a gift card embedded into that. That $25 Bitcoin gift card is already a year's salary for an individual in the low income brackets in Venezuela. So that's really the hope, is we're really mashing that all together, taking that whole gaming elements of collecting and achievement and growth and social connection, and then making sure that the output is empowering all these different causes. So yeah, hopefully that was succinct enough to explain. It's we're very much on kind of the bleeding edge here. So a lot of our core community is really heavily centered in the blockchain NFT space, because what's happening now is that there's this giant gold rush going into that industry. And what we want to avoid is, hey, let's just stop minting billionaires here and start giving this money back to the people and distribute it much more equitably. Which is why we are very specifically not for profit, because there's a lot of value to be gained in this space. And so we want to be able to have this engine that redistributes that value back to people.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, but I also want to stress the fact that I think a lot of the true ownerships of digital assets has come from a space of, so say Netflix or all these streaming services that are so convenient now to have. Microsoft's streaming service, where you have all of these games that you can use, or Steam is a great model. Like, you, at the end of the day, you still don't own the games that you buy on Steam, which is a bit mind-blowing if you think about it. So from a very simplistic viewpoint, the way that I think of it is, a Netflix, you've always browsed Netflix and you've been like, hey, I want to watch, this episode of Parks and Rec or something, and then they've pulled the license. So it really drives home the fact that you don't own anything. And I love the concept of NFTs, because it really provides, the crypto technology allows you to truly own something that is digital. And that in and of itself is mind-blowing, to be able to give that sense of ownership back, and then going that extra mile to be able to use it for charitable purposes is really, like, I feel like we could talk about that for a really long time. Just to wrap it up, I wanted to ask you, what has surprised you the most about doing this work, preferably on the positive side, and how can we follow your projects? Tom?
I think that I was really pleased to see how much passion there was in communities. I hadn't really dived into a community before we launched this project, but then we attracted people and we built our own community, and just the level of enthusiasm and passion, it just made things a lot of fun. And the PBL, we do things a little differently. We run things around seasons. So we develop a season and then we release it. And so we're developing season 4 right now, and people can follow us on Twitter at Pro Battle League on Twitter. That's the best place.
Okay, Anthony, if you wouldn't mind. I have so many more questions about your book, but
that's okay. We can talk about that later.
Okay, perfect.
I would definitely say the thing that kind of surprised me the most is how welcoming the geek community is, and all the other varying communities, the clicks, the non-clicks, just how overwhelming supportive everyone is of each other. And I think that is a massive testament to what I think all of us are trying to do in all of our own unique ways, is to have that support from our fellow people. And we're not necessarily, like, say, they're not my next door neighbors. They're people over in Ireland. They're people over in China. They're here in the United States. We're all collaborating and connecting on a space through gaming, because we're having very similar, what we'd call kind of like archetypal experiences. And I think that is a wonderful boon for our futuristic generations, but also where gaming is going to go. And that's what we kind of focus heavily on when we talk about geek therapeutics, is the idea of how can we focus on making sure that everyone has this information that we can get out to them, but also to be able to train people how to manage whether it's video gamers, esports individuals, understanding the culture, anime, manga, everything like that. The whole supremacy of geek culture is really what we focus heavily on, and then to be able to utilize it in a therapeutic setting. And so if people want to know a little bit more about us, you can just search at Geek Therapeutics on all social media, and you'll find us. We're Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everything. We do all sorts of fun stuff.
Thank you. Jeremy.
Yeah, there's a lot of learnings to be had, a lot of hard lessons too. It's hard to be an entrepreneur. I'll say that. And, I think we've all been through those types of journeys. But one of the most positive surprises I found is that particularly in the blockchain world, because everything is connected and there's utility in sharing assets, everybody in the space just wants to work together. It's not about competition. You actually win by collaborating. Because, for example, we now network with a number of different blockchain games, and they would want to have their assets portable and compatible onto our platform, and vice versa. Ours would be compatible with them. So you're not taking your identity anywhere you go, and the same profile, your same story of who you are and your accomplishments and the good that you've done are actually going all over the place. So this is actually so fascinating to see that this community is also so social good oriented. They know that the power that's going to bring to society is massive. So they just want to help anybody that's trying to build something, no matter like where you're from, what you're doing, how small or big your project is. The industry here is the total opposite of how the private sector currently works, which is basically super cutthroat, smash your competition, and like dominate everything. That's a wonderful thing to connect with those type of kindred spirits. And it's just, everything's very purpose driven. People are trying to have an impact and really trying to change the world in a positive way. So if you'd like to follow us, we are essentially building our product out in the open. So we're still in like proof of concept and alpha mode. We're also a volunteer organization. So we've attracted about 70 people contributing to the project. And we're trying to grow our community on Discord. So check out our website, leyline.gg. In our footer, you can see all of our social media links. But biggest thing is come pop into our Discord. We'd love to have you. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're doing some wild and crazy stuff over in blockchain world and trying to bring some good into that space.
I might have to have you back on, Jeremy, to be like blockchain 101, because unless you want to stay another 2 hours, I don't think you have the time.
It's pretty deep, and I'm happy to share. Honestly, it's a very new and cutting edge space. So I think just sharing knowledge is really important. So happy to kind of provide context and explain, because there's a lot of like fear and uncertainty and doubt, but there's also a huge promise. And we want to really focus energy to kind of focus on these opportunities that we have. Yeah,
same thing with, gamer stigma, how society paints gaming, rather than focus on the fear and uncertainty of that, let's focus on the good that can be done. And, you guys are changing the world in baby steps. And before you know it, it's going to be the cyclone of, social good projects around gaming, social good projects around crowd-funded projects like blockchain. I'm super happy you were able to join me, and you love to see it. And thank you guys so much for joining me on the panel.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching our Gaming for Good panel at Infernal's LANFest Mayhem event. I'm Nixie Pixel, and I hope that this helped you change your perspective on gaming, or maybe it validated you a little bit, and how gaming can be used for social change and good. Speaking of social change and good, if you had a chance to donate today, thank you so much. Your contributions are going to Engineers Without Borders. In the world's toughest places, they're installing solar panels to bring light where it's dark. They're digging for water so hope can spring from the ground. Any amount that you are able to give through donate.landfest.com, big or small, will help build the foundation for a community to thrive for years to come.